Yaz.
Yaz. I think we're live, which is great news. We are live. Look at that. I'm gonna get a bit of feedback for a second as I kill this stream here. Ooh, bit of double. Okay, look at that. We're live. Sam Lucardi, Zeno Davidoff, Hayden Dare, Alex O'Brien, David Taylor, Adrian Graham, Darren Howie, everyone who's joining in right now live. Thank you so much for joining in. My name's Matt Bailey. I am the National Ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society here in Australia, and looking after members around the country, doing a live stream every single night. The exception of last Monday, I'm sorry, there's circumstances outside of my control, but we're doing a live stream every single night, talking with people, doing solo live streams, talking whiskey, talking community, talking everything that is great about being a member of the society. And I really appreciate you all tuning in and being a part of this. I'm just going to introduce our guests tonight, Emma Cookson and Lachlan Watt from Whisky Alement, which is rather cool to have both of you in stream at the same time with me tonight. So thank you so much for joining in.
No bother.
No worries.
Fantastic. I think the stream's just frozen up a little bit over here, but I think we're all good. David Taylor, good to see you. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, James. Thanks, Scott Brickhill. Everyone tuning in live, which is fantastic. We've got two very special guests tonight, both of you who work at Whisky Alement but have had very different trajectories and careers in whiskey. And it's just great to have you both here to talk about both your journeys and the community and what you've seen lately, but all those kind of things together. So I don't even know where to properly start, really, because I haven't thought that far ahead. It was just about getting this started. But it was I might just start by saying, first of all, thank you both for being here. And second of all, I might start with Emma on this one. Just let us know where your journey in whiskey started and so where it's taken you so far.
Yeah. Well, I mostly came from a cocktail background, actually. So a lot of kind of the bars I worked in, a lot of the circles I moved in were focusing on classic cocktails and stuff like that. And then I remember being invited to a old-fashioned competition, so a cocktail competition to make an old-fashioned with the guys over at Woodford Reserve, and they were just having free old-fashions. I was like, okay, I've never really tried this before, and I was like, actually, this is amazing. And I started tasting different whiskeys in old-fashions, and I slowly weaned myself off the sugar, weaned myself off the ice. And then, now it's obviously it's a obsession. And I think
you went that whole time without mentioning chartreuse once.
I know. I didn't say it, Lucky, he did. Yeah. So, that's the thing. It was predominantly cocktails, but then, kind of treading into the waters of whiskey, I was like, this is really cool. And for me, I come from a literature background, so stories are so important and so close to my heart. And there's just so many amazing stories around whiskeys that I couldn't help but get sucked in.
Yeah. And for you, Lockie, where does your back? I know you're a Wollongong boy, so I'm not going to let you get away with not telling that part. But where does your background in whiskey begin for you?
Well, actually, my background in whiskey started when I was 17. So my very Scottish father, who moved over here to Australia when he was 18, his family settled in Wollongong, which is where I was raised. And when I was 17, my older brother and sister were in town for the first time after a few years abroad, basically. And so we're celebrating Christmas together. And if you know any Scottish people, they get given bottles of whiskey for every birthday, any Christmas, any reason to celebrate. And my father doesn't drink a lot of whiskey. So it comes to Christmas Eve, my older brother and sister are in town. We decide to sit down and open a bottle of whiskey together and enjoy a dram to celebrate all being together for the first time in a few years. And so we went to his cupboard and found this massive collection of whiskey that's never been opened. It's all core range stuff that's incredibly tasty and really fun. And they pulled out a bottle of Glenrother Select Reserve, which is unfortunately now a discontinued dram. And they opened that up, poured me a quite sizable glass of it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then we polished off that entire bottle and decided to open a bottle of Highland Park 12-year-old. And drank through that and really, really enjoyed it, and then sank into my father's homemade absinthe, which was a different journey. But that was kind of where my whiskey journey started. I moved to Melbourne in 2013, and I knew I liked whiskey, but didn't know anything about it or how to approach the subject in a bar or anything like that. So basically, I just Googled whiskey bar when I got to Melbourne, and first one that came up was Whisky Alement. And once I finally found the front door, that's when I started to learn more about whiskey. And keep in mind, this is the time when Whisky Alement didn't have any signs on the front door or out the front whatsoever. It was just a black window with a black curtain, and that was it.
That black curtain's still there today.
Exactly. So that's kind of where my whiskey journey started. I started bartending in 2014, and in 2014 I got a job at the Kilburn with Joey Ty, and she started teaching me about the broader topic of booze, not just whiskey, but everything else, and rum, brandy, etc., etc., etc. Emma was actually a recent, consistent customer of mine, coming in to learn more about whiskey at that point in time, and yeah, we kind of actually end up learning together about a lot of these spirits. So
it was actually at the Kilburn where I first met you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool to hear those introductory journeys, and a few people have piped up and said that for the interests of drink-wise and all that, and legal reasons, that you were 18 in one day when you first got into whiskey there, Lachlan. That was excellent.
Or sub 3 months, but you know,
we couldn't verify that. A big shout out to Tim, Rob, Tim, Andrew, Joey, Joel, Mark, Tristan, Sally, Inoka, Richie, Dita, Anthony. So many people tuning in, which is great. So your journey sort of took you all the way from when you were quite young, Lachlan, into quite an establishment at the time was the Kilburn. What was the Kilburn like back then? It was a partner bar of the societies even then as well.
It was a society bar, and it was actually quite a young venue when it was only a year in that I got a job there. And I honestly, I'm going to be honest, I knew nothing about booze or cocktails or anything whatsoever. But I was super excited. And so when I went in there, walking in there was like something else. Walking into 800 bottles on the bar between whiskey, rum, and brandy was just absolutely incredible. And it was an incredible bar to work in and kind of cut my teeth on, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where I got my first interaction with the society. One of my very first interactions with the society is a particular bottling which I can never ever forget. It's the Raspberry Imperial Stout, the Yamazaki, which I was drinking for my knockoff every night after work. And I doubt I'll ever get to do that ever again. So,
what a hell of a knockoff.
No.
Emma, what was your first interaction then with the SMWS in your interactions?
I think I didn't really remember seeing it up on the bar at the Kilburn, but I'm sure it was there. I was so new. I was like, first shelf.
Yeah.
From there. But yeah, it was actually coming to Whisky and Alement and working at Whisky and Alement, and getting there, they're like, hey, by the way, we're a partner bar. Here's a whole bunch of information. And I read through it and I was like, this is amazing. Like, what? This is amazing. How have I never, I don't know how, I just never come across it. But yeah, it's funny how many people I've, kind of in my day-to-day life, I'm like, have you heard of the society?
Yeah, you're surprised how many don't still. It's one of the best kept secrets in a way. Not the best way. Hey Rob, good to see you, and good to see you, Jay Davis, of course, and Caleb, good to see you as well. There's so many Melbourne members tuning in. You've got quite a community built around you, of course. Your celebrity status, of course. Darren Howie says, please pass on a big thanks to Em and Lockie for the tips for our Isla trip. I will drop the map they lent us back in when we get to Melbourne soon.
Oh, fantastic.
I remember that. I'm pretty sure I was like, take it with you.
Yeah, it's such an incredible trip to do. So anyone who hasn't should definitely do it as soon as we open back up again.
Oh yeah. Zeno asks, what is the Boilermaker, Lockie?
As in the Boilermaker as a drink, or what I'm currently drinking?
Let's go with both.
So Boilermaker as a pairing is actually a pairing of, well, traditionally whiskey and a beer. It's built out of a half and a half. So tradespeople, when they finished off work, would go to their local tavern, saloon, or pub, and they would get a half and a half, or a beer and a shot. It was just a shot of whiskey to drink that quickly before they went home and went to sleep. Specifically, Boilermakers who were working overnight at the steelworks, whatever steelworks they may be. That is kind of where the Boilermaker gets its name from. But a Boilermaker, to what we see today, is a pairing of a beer and a spirit. Again, typically whiskey, because they are made out of the same material, being grain and grain, distilled or brewed, with slight very differences. What I'm drinking currently, though, is not whiskey. It is actually a peat sour from Western Australia called the Other Side Peat Sour. It was a special release for this year.
Right.
Absolutely incredible. Super juicy, fresh, and tart. It's exactly what I want in a sour. And this super funky Arizona spirit, which is a prickly pear, fruit, and sugar distillate that's been matured. And it's super strange and super fun.
Is that a nice way of saying brandy, or?
Well, because they've specified. I just realized they specify cane. Don't think we can call it specifically brandy. It'd be a mixed spirit, really, wouldn't it? Or spirit drink.
Yeah. I always have a giggle at when I see bottles that have spirit drink written on them. It's a bit like, those really, really cheap bottles of like Fruity Lexia, those wines that say wine flavored beverage.
Fruity dry red.
Doesn't have the word wine anywhere on it. Just fruity dry red. For legal reasons, we can't write the word wine.
Exactly. But it
says Lockie dropping knowledge on us. Absolutely. And big shout out from Joel Rinaldi here. Good to see you. A question for you, Emma. So from your start in the trade to now, what's some of the biggest changes you've seen, especially on the Melbourne scene? Because I think it's safe to say Melbourne has really led quite a charge, thanks to places like Whisky Alement and other great whiskey bars, of course, has led the charge on building that community around whiskey. So what do you think, what have you seen change in the time you've been involved?
I think it's kind of in terms of change, it's kind of this like steady, consistent growth is kind of what I've seen. And I find that I think not long before we closed, I was talking to an SMWS regular, actually, Mike, and he was saying, I've never walked into a bar and just immediately felt so comfortable and so welcome. And I can't imagine, not coming in and seeing you guys and visiting you guys. So I think, especially in Melbourne, we, as all the whiskey bars in Melbourne, have kind of moved away from that, here's a cool place to drink whiskey, here's a cool whiskey and I'll tell you about it. And it's really become more of a family community, I find. And I think in Melbourne especially, we've always had that family dynamic between bartenders and between bars. And I think that's really, really good and really healthy for the consumer, because you can know, well, okay, I have this particular interest in this style of whiskey. And, even though I'm standing behind the bar at Whisky Alement, I'll say to you, I'm like, look, I don't have a lot of those kinds of, styles that you're really into, but I can recommend, this person to speak to or this place to go and stuff like that. It's not you should stay in my bar because, this is my bar. It's I want you to have that best experience. And I think consumers are really responding to that.
So the experience is sort of more about localized knowledge, more so than just which dram or beer to have at that bar.
Yeah, exactly. Having that knowledge of, you walk into Whisky Alement and, you'll have kind of a general idea of what you want. We can point you in that direction. But if you're that person who has that specific idea, we're like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to help you, even if what I have available isn't at my bar. I think it's nice for patrons to kind of walk in and know that they're going to get that kind of approach and that kind of service, I think.
It's a very honest approach to the scene rather than sort of just, I guess a rail response.
Yeah.
Well, something to add to that is that's definitely been instilled in everyone who's ever worked in Whisky Alement by Brooke and Jules, who are the most hospitable people that I've ever met personally.
Yeah.
Their entire attitude towards service and their venue is to make everyone feel as comfortable as they can and at home when they're inside that bar. So that has been absolutely instilled into us and the people that came before us that taught us. And for every person who's ever walked through that door will know that, or through that curtain will know that as well. And Whisky Alement being effectively the first whiskey bar in Melbourne has kind of inspired a lot of people to do something very similar. So
that history, I mean, I've even got the pins here, the 10-year pins. Here we go. We're rocking them. There you go. Yeah, this year is, of course, the 10th anniversary. It's a bit frustrating that we can't celebrate in person as we had planned.
We can at least celebrate at home,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we can celebrate live like we're doing now. Hello to Ali. Hello to Alex, Jim, Talita, David. Good to see you all tuning in. Thank you so much. So tell us what's happening at the bar now. I mean, that's probably as good a segue as ever. What's happening at the bar now that's sort of like keeping things going, keeping the wheels moving?
So, well, everyone has probably seen what we've been doing with our juice bags. So we've basically tried to bring the bar to everyone at home. And we're trying to not make it too overstocked or too overpopulated. We're just releasing a small amount of product each week, trying to keep things interesting and fun. So we're releasing flights and Boilermakers in our little 30 milliliter juice bags. Unfortunately, we had trouble with our last supplier of these, which for anyone who's gotten some that have leaked, we do apologize for those. But now we've got these really tough, sturdy things that I actually jumped on one of these earlier. It didn't.
was that deliberate? Was it like a test?
Yeah, basically, because I was just pushing the limits of it. But they should be absolutely perfect now, and we genuinely do apologize to everyone for that, and hope everyone has been approached by one of the team to have that kind of fix. Yeah. But we're doing that. We've got the Boilermakers being sent out as well. We are also now, as of this week, doing pickups at the bar, so you can order stuff to be picked up there. But also we've been, myself and the rest of the team have been collaborating on a weekly learning experience. So we've selected a flight that's talking about specific maturation or production techniques or different history approaches that will release once a week or once every 2 weeks. We're still working out the kinks on that one, with a little video attached, which will be with the person who wrote the blog post, which will be attached to it with some more information, full set of tasting notes and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually check that out before you buy, so you can see what those whiskeys might taste like.
Yep. And
learn a bit while you're stuck at home or, working from home. So that's nice and fun. It's keeping all of us busy as well. So
yeah.
How have things changed for you then, Emma, on your side of things and in your role there?
Well, I described it to someone, I think Sam, the other day, as refreshingly mundane. So obviously I'm not pouring whiskeys over the bar anymore, but I'm the person packaging and helping send out all these whiskeys to people, which is fantastic. And, even the opportunity to write little notes on everyone's package and before I send them out just really makes it feel, and I hope it makes it feel for them that, we're still there, we're still thinking of you, we're still connected, we appreciate your help at this time,
Yeah.
It's been really good. It's nice. Obviously it's very surreal to just sit there with that huge wall of whiskey in front of you and you're like, I'm not touching you today, I'm sorry. But it's been good. I mean, I actually really, the other week I was thinking, as I was packing orders, I'm like, you can almost tell which regulars are which just by what they order.
Yeah, sure.
Which is fantastic. But yeah, so it's fulfilling, I think, in a way I didn't expect, which is nice. But,
That's very cool.
yeah.
A couple of comments coming in. Caleb says, I can't wait for all this to blow over so I can come back down from Sydney. Mate, you and me both, trust me. Zena says, the new bags are great for festival season. I'll be keeping mine. Just get a goon bag instead.
I didn't think about that.
And Robert says, Emma is a star baker. Your baking skills are getting known across the lands already.
Yes. So we obviously, before we had to close, we were heavily anticipating the 10th birthday at Whisky Alement, which was very exciting. And I had grand plans for a cake, which I made, but then fell through. So Jules is currently woofing into the cake that was intended for the birthday party, because it's been sitting in my fridge for the last few weeks. Yes. I'm a big baker. I'm experimenting with whiskey in baked goods. So,
well, if you have a copy of May Outturn, folks, this is as good as ever time to say it. There's single cask recipes in there. Bam. So, which is kind of cool actually. That Drew's peated chocolate whiskey cake. He usually uses Ardbeg, but you can use any peated whiskey. So Joel Bradbury says, unfortunately, I had a leak, but only lost about 10 mils. Still a great idea, and we'll continue to get some of the samples. Something that should stay no matter what happens, I think.
Actually, one thing I want to mention for everyone, if you have had a leak, no matter how big or small, we would really appreciate it if you get in contact with us, because the last thing we want to do is provide a bad service. And
absolutely, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Anything we can do to reprimand that. We've been sending out replacements or refunds if those whiskies aren't up to scratch. So,
yep.
Or there's not any left of them, as most of the society ones that we've put out. But please get in contact with myself, or send us an email to shop@whiskyandale.com.au, and we'll be in contact with you, and we'll organize something to replace that. Because, I mean, during this time, the last thing you want to be doing is spending money on a faulty product. So.
No, especially these days at the moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Ali says that she got her juice bags delivered safe and sound in Tassie, along with a lovely note. Thank you. Brought a smile to my face. Absolutely. Excellent. And Joel and Aldi says, Joel says, being from Perth, I've never made it to Whisky Alement, but the tasting notes on the juice boxes were on point. Kudos to whoever does those. Come on, who's doing the tasting notes on the juice packs?
That is actually Julian. Yeah, that's Julio Blanco.
I wondered if that name was going to come up tonight. Julio Blanco. In white.
That's Julian. So, yeah, he's organizing the tasting notes, because for the most part, he's organizing the flights and the Boilermakers, et cetera, et cetera. The only ones that he's not organizing are our teachable experiences, basically. Our I think we've been calling them homeschools.
Yeah.
So far to this point. So.
Yes, Kyle says, missed popping in to see you guys across the road for a knockoff. Oh, good to see you, Kyle. Hope you're well, mate. You were one of the last people I saw behind the bar, actually, before all these lockdowns started. So there you go. Darren says, a huge plus we have found on our W&A experience is the enthusiasm and knowledge of everyone. You can trust them to move you into great unknown whiskey places, opening doors you would never known to try. That's a really good point from Darren there about how you, as in your traditional roles of actually on the service side of the bar, how you recommend whiskies to people, how that sort of comes about. It's a discussion we're having later at the round table, but it's also one that I sort of might want to just touch on a bit now. So you'd often get people coming into the bar saying they don't know much about whiskey, or they've tried a Glenfiddich, or they've tried a Lafroig, and or a Lafoy, and they don't know where to go from there. So what would be the sort of, how would you often approach that?
So for me, at least, I try and, first of all, I try and remove all thoughts of regionality, of country of origin. For the most part, I try and remove production style as well. So I don't even want to talk about whether it's a bourbon or a rye or Scotch whiskey or a grain whiskey or a malt whiskey, whatever. I try and remove all of that as much as I can, especially for a new customer who doesn't quite know what they like and what they enjoy. And I immediately just go to what kind of flavors would you like? I usually break it down into 4 categories, which is would you like something fruity? Would you like something savory? Would you like something spicy? Or would you like something smoky? Super simple. Break that down, nice and easy for them.
And you guys have actually started doing that with the changes in the way the menu is structured, wasn't it? With like sort of flavor profiles in the menu.
Absolutely. So especially for the one in the bar upstairs at Melbourne Whiskey Room, Julian and I went through our entire back bar upstairs and we pulled all the whiskies down and we tried to create 6 flavor categories that were easily described by 3 flavors. And so we talked purely about flavor, not talking about region, not talking about anything else. And we broke the entire menu down into 6 categories. And that was honestly one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. And also surprisingly long experience because we're trying to do it just on the nose off the bottle without tasting any of these spirits. Having tasted them previously, obviously, but a nose is all you need to remind.
But seriously, like last time I was at the bar, last time I was upstairs, I was actually picking my whiskeys based on that structure. And even I can look at that menu and I can identify every single bottle in that list. But even still, I look at those menus and I go, wow, that's actually really interesting. And I need to reassess how I'd pick something. And I think the SNWS flavor profiles provide the similar sort of structure for that. Like coastal or lightly peated or sweet, fruity and mellow. It's like less attention on the distillery for us is a good thing because it's obviously part of the structure of how the society works, but it's more focused on the flavor and the structure of that whiskey.
Absolutely.
Emma, how would you go about that?
Oh, me.
Introducing someone like who doesn't really, who knows they like whiskey, but they'll look at the back bar and become utterly confused.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it is very intimidating, especially for those people. Pretty much we go along Lockie's lines of it, the flavor profiles, kind of getting an idea of what flavor they want. Sometimes you will have those people who are like, I don't know, I kind of walked in and thought, hey, I'll have a whiskey. So for me, like extending on that, I always look at, do you remember what you've had in the past and you liked? And we can kind of work from there. Sometimes they don't remember, that's fine. Another go-to of mine is, what do they normally drink? Like, forget about whiskey, don't even think about that. What do you normally drink? Do you go for a glass of red wine? Do you, go for a gin and tonic or something like that? And then from there, you can kind of build that flavor palette of what that they like and are used to. Like for something, someone who's a gin and tonic drinker, they will probably most likely, resonate with those soft, light florals kind of vibes, those really aromatic whiskies, and you can kind of go from there. It's a little bit more touchy than picking based on flavors. So I think flavors is definitely the best kind of.
For everyone who's just tuned in, and a lot of names and faces changing here. I'm chatting tonight here with Lachlan and Emma from Whisky Alement, who are 2 superstars, normally behind the bar, but have been busily bottling up juice bags and keeping the wheels turning. There they are from Lachlan there. A comment here on the Facebook page stream from someone called Brooke Heyman, who says, who's been watching in live and says, I'd like to know if Lockie's been ogling the Raspberry Imperial Stout in the SNBS archive cabinet and dreaming of
Yes, I have been. I have been since the day I started working at Whisky Alement, so I've known it's been in the cellar somewhere.
There's the upstairs cabinet, which is it looks fantastic, especially with those extra ornaments of the books and the glass and the jug.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just as I started working at Whisky Alement, we actually had the Raspberry Imperial Stout open on the bar, but when we had Bar White Oak, the little Japanese cellar and Japanese whiskey bar that we had operating, and that was absolutely incredible. I was reunited with it for not a knockoff price. But I mean, that's Japanese whiskey. It quickly devolved into this rat race of the highest priced whiskey.
Yeah. I do remember Bar White. I remember launching Bar White Oak with you guys in that must have been 2016.
Yeah,
would have been around then, and it was a fantastic activation. And I remember in 2015 when Jules was talking to me about it, and I said, "Oh, where are you going to put it?" and you pointed to the area in the bar where it was going to be, this sort of just that booth area. And I said, no, but where's the bar going to be? And he said, no. I was like, where are you? Hold on, you've got a bar here and you're going to put another one there. And he said, yeah. I said, that's never going to work. And then look what happened. It worked a treat. It worked a treat. It was fantastic.
When I was first told about it, I had a very similar reaction, but there was no one around to see it.
I was sort of in a state of disbelief about how you could fit a bar in something that's 2 by 2 square meters kind of feel. No, that was great. And that was an awesome, in a way, that was almost like the peak and almost like last hurrah of Japanese whiskey in some ways.
Especially in Australia.
Yeah, especially in Australia. Well, but even in Japan, I mean, it's impossible to find Japanese whiskey in Japan these days. Some comments coming in at the moment. Joel is following up from our reply saying, please don't worry about the leak. Nice to know that you've got it fixed. The issue, it's I have had a whole bottle leak on me before in delivery, so 10 mils is nothing. Still got a good taste. Tony Chapman joined. Good to see you, Chapo. Matt, since you have 2 amazing people from Whisky Alement live with you right now, are you able to talk about the special cask? No, I'm not. But it's a bit early to talk about anything about that. But when it's available, when we'll talk about it when we can talk about it. But
which special cask?
What cask are you talking about? I have no idea. And Hayden says the world needs more triple berry Lamington cake. That was the last special cask. That was a very special drop indeed.
Oh, it was fantastic.
So good.
Unfortunately,
I still have my bottle.
No, it's dearly departed on my end.
That was a proper, I would call that a proper party whiskey in many ways.
Oh, absolutely. I found actually, so particularly with that bottling, it's a great example of oxidation in whiskey. So with that particular bottling, as soon as we opened a fresh bottle, we would nose it and it's sharp and bright and big. And we just had to be like, okay, cool. Serving it to people. My first recommendation to people ordering that whiskey, if we just opened the bottle, was leave this in the glass for the next 10 minutes. Just let it oxidize, let it break down, because you will understand the flavor profile a lot better than if you dived into that right now.
Yeah.
It would be dense, it would be savory, it would be dark. But if you leave it for 10 minutes, it becomes juicy and fresh and jammy. And that is the perfect example of oxidation in whiskey. That particular bottling, when it got to halfway down, it was perfect to serve. You could pour it and shoot it if you wanted to. But
I mean, we could talk for hours about oxidization in whiskey, because I'm one of those people that thinks that oxidization is actually normally whiskey's friend.
Absolutely. You and I have actually spent a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah. And there's a bar in Sydney, actually, one of our partner bars here in Sydney, Archie Rose, were recently they were clearing out every bottle on the back bar of everything. And they were just charging by how much was left in the bottle. And they were selling part bottles and full bottles of everything on the back bar. And there were some fantastic drops on there, which were like, there was a third left in the bottle. And there's all there's commentary online about, it'd be sitting on the back bar could be sitting there for years. It's all oxidized. I'm like, yeah, give me that one. Yeah. The work's already done for it in many cases. I mean, it doesn't work for every whiskey, of course, or every rum, but some of those rums they had were fantastic that had a bit of time out.
I reckon, yeah, especially high proof rum that has had a bit of oxidation, that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stuart Glasgow says a few things here. He says Boilermakers are evil, because he's commenting on something from earlier. And,
all right, settle down. On your bike, Squire.
And he also says, bring back Anzac biscuits. SMWS, loved it, Stuart. Yeah, mate, I loved it too. That was another, and it was a 15th anniversary bottling, that one. Yeah. And of course, it's not too early for us to be working on our 20th anniversary, which is in 2022 for us.
Yeah, 2 years.
There's already casks in motion, which is fantastic to know about. And our cellar master will be looking after all of that. Alan Chen joined. Andy Davis joined. Any questions that want to come through? Otherwise, and anything you guys want to ask me. I mean, we're here. It's a bit of a chat between us all.
No, not really. What? How's everything going for this festival bottling release?
I mean, I'm interviewing you guys, but I just thought I'd ask. I mean, if there's anything you want to ask me, but there's it's good. I mean, we're getting a lot of attention around the May outturn at the moment, only because it's 40 pages long, which is almost twice the length of a normal outturn. But the idea was that we wanted to give members something to read in the downtime, stuck at home, a beefy issue to chew through. And of course, that includes all the festival casks, which are all in high demand. But we've just
what I'm drinking right now.
Yeah. So which one are you on? Which 10 is it?
It's the 14-year-old. It's 10.188.
Okay.
Ah,
188.
I'm drinking the other 10.
The smoky 10.
Oh, you're on the smoky 10. Ah, okay.
Yeah, what is it? Make Moine Devil?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went with that one because it gave that first initial whiff of being sweeter, and I like to move from kind of sweeter to saltier. So.
And how did you find it? How did you find the big Moine?
Oh, good. It's very viscous. It's got like if you liquidized like hot sand on a beach kind of vibes.
Yep. Which is not uncommon. Moine Bunners.
Yeah.
Hot silica.
Second fill Oloroso 6-year-old. So it's it's only just sort of past the cask, really.
That's the next one for me.
There you go. And how about you, Lockie, with that 10? The 10 dot
Look,
10.
To follow on with what Emma and yourself were saying, is that's Bunnahabhain for me. It's thick, it's rich, it's viscous. Whether it's sherry cask matured or 6-year-old bourbon cask or et cetera, it's going to be rich. It's going to be big. It's going to be thick and dense. That is what Bunnahabhain is for me. It's dense whiskey.
Yeah.
And I think the latest 10s from the last couple of out turns have all had that like lovely, thick, viscous, palate to them, which is just really yummy to see.
Absolutely. And this 188 is a perfect example of what we all know as Bunnahabhain, which is the unpeated, rich, salty sherry cask, thick, viscous, leathery, cedary whiskey. But
that one's a 14-year-old refill sherry, and it's I like the beginning of the tasting note. It says a collective ooh, then awed hush from the panel as we encountered mushroom accented cough mixtures. Things like that. I love those kind of I love those tasting.
It's got cherry starburst on it. It's a really cool whiskey. It's exactly what I expect from an unpeated Bunnahabhain. Exactly what I want from it. It's what I want from an unpeated Bunnahabhain.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Matt, I noticed that a lot of the flavor notes have moved away from those like this is what I kind of get off of it to more of a vibe. Yeah.
I kind of like that though. I like the fact that each tasting note is turning more and more into like a story around what was happening in the time and place and taste of it, rather than the this, rather than being completely just then this kind of approach, as you're saying. Yeah.
No, I 100%. I really like that vibe. That's something I kind of aim over the bar at Whisky and Alement, is to not just kind of tell people what flavor notes I get, but kind of draw them into the world I feel when I drink it. So
very cool. Very cool. Okay, well, the last few comments before we'll call it a night. Thanks, guys. Is Joel Bradbury says, I hope to be jumping on that 10. Mate, absolutely. And Zeno says, what does that hot sand note Lachlan refer to? Where does it come from? Is it an example? Is it age or cask or what?
Oh, hot sand. That is a hard one to define. Personally, I think that hot sand thing is, look, it's more pronounced in specifically young peated bourbon cask whiskey. And certain distilleries have it in spades and certain distilleries won't. So for example, the ones that I find have it in spades are things like Ardbeg, Lechaig, Lechaig, Tobermory. Tobermory is full of hot sand. Bunnahabhain, and Kilchoman. They are distilleries that I find hot sand is incredibly prominent. Whether that's their distillation regime, their location, a lot of these distilleries are located close to the ocean or where their barley is coming from. That is up for discussion. But it is just, I find it's more prominent on young bourbon cask peated whiskey.
Yep. We've got two last questions for both of you. So a question from Stuart here. He asks, on a whiskey note, for each of you, what is on your individual bucket/wish lists? I might rephrase that slightly to say, if there was one whiskey that is on your absolute bucket list, wish list, what would it be? And it can be, if either of you say malt mill, you're getting ejected from this conversation immediately. Add that last bit, but that's okay.
I never was going to, but you know, I kind of want to now. Oh, good question.
Emma, how about you?
Oh, I mean, like I think, actually, there is one whiskey that I very much. Oh no, now that's two. Now I can think of two.
We got to start. Just go with one.
Okay, let's go with the one. There was a bottling not long after I started working at Whisky Alement that came through the bar, and it was a 7-year-old feta can bottled for the 2015 Drambury, I believe, if my Roman numerals are correct.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. I loved it. It was balsamic raspberries and honey. It was salty but sweet and weird, and it, absolutely took me by surprise. And I, the moment that bottle was emptied, I cradled it in my arms. I was like, goodbye.
You don't hear too many people getting overly excited by feta can, so I really appreciate that response.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I've tried a few feta cans that really strike that funny balsamic note that I really love, that balsamic honey. But that particular bottle for me was fantastic. I've tried looking for it since, and obviously being 2015 Drambury, it's long gone. I did find out it was from a split cask, but there's only 3 bottles left in a small shop in Japan that doesn't ship to Australia. And I'm just, if I could get it again, I would. But
there you go.
Just happy to have tried it.
That's the dream, isn't it? Lockie, how about you?
Oh, look, I could talk all day on this topic, but I've got kind of 2 answers. One that I've wanted to taste since the first time I met the bottle, which was the first edition Silver Seal 25-year-old Port Ellen.
Right.
Which comes in.
Fair answer.
Look, to be entirely honest, I've not really met a Port Ellen I've been obsessed with ever. But I think I really want to taste this whiskey for mostly provenance, I guess. Also, because of the box it comes in this beautiful silver alligator skin box.
Oh, I remember that box. I can't believe you're picking it up.
Absolutely gaudy, and it's so Italian, and I love it. And it's Silver Seal, and it's just like, it's the first edition Silver Seal. I want to try it. So that is the one that I haven't tasted before that I would like to try. Something that I have tasted before and I'd really love to be in touch with again is the Mortlock 2002 Manager's Dram.
Yep.
That was a absolute stunner. That is one of like 5 whiskeys for me that I've rated top 5 of all time that I've tasted. That is up there with the Raspberry Imperial Stout. That is up there with 28-year-old Highland Parks from Silver Seal. That is it's a stunning whiskey.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, that was the last one. I will thank you everyone for all your amazing comments, questions. I'm sorry to Ivan Myers, Andy Bunteen, Will Aldis, who just joined in, but we're just calling it a night for now. Thank you so much to Emma Cookson, Lachlan Watt for joining us from taking time out of their evening to catch up with the society members and have a chat with us and and answer some cool questions.
Absolutely loved it. So
thanks, guys, and we'll be back live tomorrow night. That'll be Andrew broadcasting tomorrow night, so keep an eye out for that one, everyone. And in the meantime, I'll see you back for post outturn Friday night. Good luck for outturn, everyone. There's heaps of information on the society website on how to make the most of outturn, so that's the best way to go about it. Make sure you're logged in. All the usual tips I'll give you, because it's going to be a bit of a rush on some bottlings, as I'm sure you can imagine. Thank you, guys. Thank you, both of you, again. And
my pleasure. And enjoy the mayhem of outturn.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, and we'll see you all soon. I hope to be back in the bar real soon.
Sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
All right, Sanchivar.
Yes.
Bye.